Hello, it's the Fruitwise Orchard on the 3rd of January, and I just want to talk about one of the most important decisions that you're going to have to make when you're planting an orchard, and that is how far apart to plant your trees. Now this is a complicated calculation to make, and it's not easy, and the most experienced of us still get it wrong sometimes. From the bottom up, the size of your trees and the distances you should plant your trees apart begins with the soil, and then moves on to the rootstock, the soil, the rootstock, the scion, the actual variety of the apple that you're growing, and then there's the microclimate, there's the, just your local conditions, and then of course there are things like how you care for the trees, how much disease and pest problems you run into. And this down here is a tree which has been sawn down. Don't worry, it didn't suffer any pain. It lived its life as long as it lived it. We had some fruit off of it, people enjoyed the fruit. But the trees turned out to be too close together. Look how big that tree is. And look how big this tree is here. And look how much growth it made. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I'll clean. Look how much growth it made this year. That's a year's growth. That's nearly 4 feet. So with that tree that size there is trees that size there, and this one which we cut down, which was as big as either of them, the trees were growing into each other. We couldn't get between them. There was a problem with air and light, and the real issue is that these were planted originally 9 feet apart. They should have been planted at least 12 feet apart, and now they were growing into each other so badly. You can see how huge this tree is here. They were growing into each other so much that the only sensible decision we could make in order to get around the trees, to get into them, to prune them, to thin them, to manage them, to mow between them with our ride-on mower, the only decision we could make was to cut out every other one. So now they're going to be 18 feet apart. Now that's not a terrible disaster really. These two we left, it's just a balanced decision. You can see the row behind me. You can see the row behind me, exactly the same thing has happened here. We'll sort it, this wood won't be wasted, it will be cut up and stacked and stored, and we'll use it in our wood burning stove to warm our home. But it would have been better if the trees had been planted at a better distance. So we planted, just to summarise, and I will put a bit more in the text, and I will put a serious item about tree planting distances. As I say, it depends on the soil, the rootstock, the variety, the microclimate, and how you manage your trees, and it's very difficult to judge that. But the take-home lesson is we planted these trees, which by the way are Kids Orange Red on Mallingmerton 106 rootstock, which we planted 10 years ago, and they were tiny little trees when we planted them. They were planted 9 feet apart. We had to cut out every other one. If we planted them 12 feet apart, that probably would have been about perfect. So think this through. I'll put a bit more in the text later. Thanks, Julia.